Good morning, everybody. It is December 2nd, 2022. A lot of twos in there. And I am so happy to have Real Estate Talk TGIF. And our guest today is a friend of mine from Arizona, and his name is Joshua Smith. Hey, man, how are you today?
Yeah, no, I'm doing great, man. I'm stoked and honored to be here, dude. This is going to be fun.
Great. You were on episode 150, which is 84 episodes ago. That's more than a year and a half. And you were on there. We had a great conversation then. And what's really interesting about that is as we were getting prepared everything for this, we went back and I had actually written almost the same exact promo from that many episodes ago to now, which means that you're a consistent son of a bitch, and I love it, man. So you know what? Let's go. Let's do. Hold on 1 second. Oh, I lost you. We're gonna go right to. Sorry about that. Technology is really not difficult for me. I just like move my fingers all over the place. Go to a quick intro. Here we go. Real estate agents, are you looking to acquire clients consistently to grow your business and income for a great lifestyle? Well, this is Dave Finale, and I'm here to bring you the Real Estate Skill Builder broadcast, Real Estate Talk TGIF, brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder and the Modern Agent team. And here we are. Thank you. You know, technology gets to me sometimes. I'm usually really good at it, but this interface is really cool. I don't know if you ever used it yourself, but StreamYard is a great application, great software. And that's what we use here on Real Estate Talk TGIF. So this is episode 234. We are at 231 weeks in a row. We are the longest running live real estate broadcast. And you have the longest running podcast, I believe, or the most downloaded podcast. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, with those numbers, it's at one point I was, now when you see like Tom Ferry's numbers, and I mean, it's tough. I mean, I get about 200,000 monthly downloads on the GSD Mode podcast. We have about, I don't know, I think 1,300 episodes that we've released, been live now for about 8 years. When I say live, I do some lives, but most are pre-recorded,
Right.
but I just mean live, like active.
Right. So anyway, that's just like little things here and there. And the reason I started doing this 4.5 years ago was because I wanted to bring value to the real estate community locally and nationally if I could, because I saw someone doing a shitty job on this. And that's what I really saw. That's why I decided to do this. But anyway, here we are. We had met before 80 some weeks ago, and we actually got to meet in person in Arkansas. We were both at the same event, and you crushed your presentation that day, man. It was just like so much information, so much great stuff. And it was just an honor to watch you on stage. It was great.
Yeah.
You know? So,
yeah. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, it was fun, man. We actually, before the event, we're down there both, I don't know, it's 5 a.m. and we're both ended up staying at the same hotel. We didn't know that, but we ended up connecting in the gym. You and I were the only ones in there. And
right.
we're like, hey,
That's
what's
right.
up? Do I know you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that was awesome.
It was awesome. So, hey, man, you know what? I ask everybody the same question when we get started here. What does TGIF stand for?
Thank God it's Friday, I guess is the technical term. I mean, to me, it means nothing, well, I guess I thank God it's every day, that I'm alive every day, that I'm able to do what I do every day, but I'm a guy that loves what I do, and I work every day. So I'm not one that, a weekend is another day for me, man. I'm blessed and honored to be able to do what I do each and every day.
For this broadcast, TGIF stands for Thank God It's Finale. So anyway, we get started with that. That's how it started. But anyway, man, look, you've been in this business a long time. You've got you started as an agent. You're still an agent. You have a team. You've built software companies. You've got the most downloaded podcast in real estate. How did you get there, man? How did you start? Because everybody thinks, oh, I can't talk to this guy, and he's selling coaching and software, and this guy is. I mean, how did he ever get there? I mean, he was successful right away. Is that what happened? You were successful right away?
No, man. It's, everybody goes through their journey. And first of all, I want to hit on the point of, the approachable aspect, and I'm not just going to say this about me, but I just want to say this for any top producer, any mega producer. I understand how intimidating it can be to reach out to them, but I would never be where I am today if it wasn't for so many amazing top mega producers taking the time to have conversations with me. But I was very intentional with it. Even before I got my license, as I was in real estate school, I started just going out there and researching top realtors in my market, whatever I possibly could do, interviewing them and spending that time with them. And I followed that all throughout my entire career. Now, I got started in 2005, before there was YouTube, before there was podcasts, before any of this shit really existed. So it's a little bit more difficult at that point. I'd have to jump on airplanes to go out there and visit people and shadow them. And, but here's the amazing thing about that is I don't think anybody, at least that I know with, that I roll with, that I've met, and what definitely wasn't my experience, when I started, that's got to that level, that didn't get there without amazing mentors pouring into them. I can't think of one that I had say no. Maybe they were busy and it took a couple months to be able to schedule a phone call. Maybe it was difficult from a time wise, because top producers are very, very busy, but like, look, people are willing to share. Don't ever be afraid to go out there and ask, reach out, and I still, like I go into my YouTube channel. I respond to every single comment. People ask me questions all the time. I have a very strict no selling policy. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. If my products work for you, great. If not, that's okay too. I'm there to support anybody. So, but then going back to your original question, so I just wanted to hit on that, because there is help out there. You might be feeling right now that, hey, I don't have the support, I don't have the help. Well, let me ask you this. Are you reaching out? Are you taking the time to go out there and seek the right people? You got to seek it. You got to take the reach outs, but the right people are out there and they're willing to help you, but you got to take the initiative. From there, no, I mean, it's look, if you look at my timeline on a piece of paper, most people will be like, oh, it looks from afar that, yeah, this has been, because each year of my career is outpaced the previous year. So I've had, almost 18 years now in this industry, where every single year, even amongst the worst real estate market crash in recorded history, where every year is improved. Even first year, the business, I did 48 deals my first year, but that wasn't easy. I did 103 the second and just kept growing from there, but it wasn't easy. It took insane amounts of grit, insane amounts of focus, insane amounts of time with that. But I got into business back in 2005, and I was 23 years old. Didn't necessarily know what I was doing, but as I said earlier, I sought out the right mentors and got the right plan, executed on that plan, and went out there and did, again, 48 units my first year. My second year is when I started my team, going into my second year, and how that came about was, I wanted to double my business the next year, but back in 2005, you got to remember that there was no DocuSign. We wouldn't even have scanners. It's just like things just took longer. And doing 4 deals, I was at a capacity personally, and wanted to double my business the next year. While I was assessing that and analyzing that, I'm like, dude, I need help. So then I hired my first assistant. Then buying back that 40 hours a week of time, that then allowed me to take my business to the next level. Well, then very quickly, I got so busy where I couldn't help the amount of clients that were coming in. So then I had to start hiring agents. And 17 years later, here we are running the team still. I think you're still with me, Dave.
I'm still here. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, cool.
I go, just so everybody knows, I go off camera to share stuff on social, because I don't want anybody to think that, I am looking at my phone and ignoring Joshua. So man, let's get into the nitty gritty of people reaching out, since we started talking about that, right? One of the things that we see, and you and I have talked about this before, is what is the real estate industry going to look like next month, the month after, in 6 months? We know that there are agents leaving the business, but for the agents that are staying in the business, and there's still plenty of agents getting their licenses. Like for me, I'm a certified mentor with EXP, and I have new agents coming, and I didn't have any for a while. Now I have new ones coming, because I only take them if they're referred. And I just see that these people, the ones that are coming in, are really concentrated and focused. But what about the ones that don't have that support? Talk to me about, you're talking about reaching out. Where do they start? Could you compare it to where you started?
Yeah, I think that, the first thing is just to admit that you need help. So many people are just so proud, their egos get in the way. They think that, oh, I can figure this out, I can do this on my own. There's not one human being on this planet that's self-made. Now, maybe they didn't get a loan. Maybe they didn't have a rich parent or grandparent. I didn't have any of those things either. But as I said earlier, I would never be where I am today and have created the successes that I was able to create, throughout this journey of mine, if it wasn't for amazing mentors and guidance and people. And I rely on that so heavily. The biggest asset that I have is this thing right here. For those that are
Right.
maybe listening, I just pull up my cell phone there. I don't know if this is audio podcast as well, but anyway, and what I mean by that is I've been intentional over the years of building up a Rolodex where any problem that I have, because I'm not naive, I understand that there's going to be problems. The more successful you get, the bigger the problems get, right? So, I'm not naive in thinking that I'm not going to have problems and future problems. I mean, problems are happening readily. And, again, from that timeline, it might look like this has been an easy journey, but I've got my ass beat so many damn times. The amount of defeats that you experience, I know people call them failures, but I steal Napoleon Hill's verbiage and just call them temporary defeats. But the amount of temporary defeats that you experience will be exponentially greater than your successes. And your success is in direct proportion to the amount of temporary defeats that you experience. So you're going to go through shitstorms. I don't know any top producer that hasn't experienced those shitstorms,
Right.
but for me, it's been, hey, I want to build a Rolodex. Well, whatever that problem is, I may not know the solution for that problem, but I know the right person to call, and I will get. I've been intentional with developing those relationships where
Right.
I'll get them to answer my call and want to pour into me. So first thing is just ditch the ego, ditch the pride. It's okay to need help. I used to think that strength was like not showing any weakness, and then I realized true strength is being able to admit and understand when you're weak, where that weakness is arriving from, and then being strong enough to go get the help, go get the support that you need to improve your situation. And then from there, being very clear on what the problem is. Most people don't peel back the layers on this. It's like, as an example, I'll get so many agents that'll reach out to me that say, oh, lead generation is their biggest obstacle. Then I'll start asking a few simple questions like, okay, well, what are your consistent lead sources that you're going after? What are the conversion ratios on those? What are your follow-up processes per lead source? And it quickly becomes very obvious that, they have a shitty follow-up process. They have no tracking in place. They have,
Right.
so it's like, okay, well, lead generation then isn't your core problem. It's
Right.
it's a combination of lead conversion and a lack of tracking to be able to know where, so but taking that time to strip back the layers, and sometimes it's just asking yourself the same question 7, 8 times, like, okay, well, where's that problem? And then you ask, find out what that first layer is. And then, okay, well, why is that the problem? And then find out the next layer. Then why is that the problem? And then you get to that root core problem. It might be something mental going on in your life, from a mindset, motivational, philosophy, personal philosophy standpoint.
Right.
It might be a systems issue. It might be an operations issue. It might be a lead gen / lead conversion issue. But identifying where that problem and or problems are. So we've got to get clarity on that, and then going out there and identifying, okay, well, who crushes it? Who can I go out there and find? Do your due diligence, do your research. Who can I go out there and find that is crushing it in these areas? And then going out there and reaching out and seeking for that help. And you might find that on a podcast. You might find that on a webinar. You might find that in a coach. You might find that in a book. And you might also find that in just jumping on a conversation and having somebody pour into you and share with you what they do. I know for me, I'm an open book. I have no problem. Anybody asks me anything, I'm not going to there's no such thing as a secret in this business. There's no such thing as a magic pill,
There are no, there
so
are no secrets. Right. There are no secrets in this business. And one of the things that, I think that's one of the things, Joshua, that agents are afraid to ask the question. I mean, for me, if I'm in a room of 100 to 100,000 people and there's a question I want to ask, I want to be that dumbest person in the room, whether it's one-on-one or one on 1,000, I want to be that dumbest person in the room. And I want to ask that question to get the answer, because here's the thing. I'm going to think that 50 to 75% of the people in that room anyway want to know the answer to that question. So it's not that dumb a question. Um, so let's talk about today's market, right? We started our conversation the other day just about this and what's going on today. There's a lot of trepidation about the market. There's a lot of fear and anxiety going on. And would you think that today, in December 2022, that we are trending toward a bad market? Are we trending toward an up market? Are we trending toward a normal market, which we haven't seen for a long time? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah. So the first thing before what I'm about to say, just because I don't want to depress or scare anybody, is the reality is that there is no such thing as a good market or a bad market. The market is always good for somebody, and as real estate professionals, it's our job to identify whom the market is good for, and then go out there and position our marketing, our prospecting, our messaging, and our efforts towards whom it's good for. Like we're
Right.
crushing it right now, even though Phoenix is one of the fastest unwinding markets. Our sales are down about 50%, pendings are down about 60%. We've got prices already down about 20% from the peak, to now in December of 2022. And we're out there still crushing it because we pivoted. We've adapted to it. So there is no such thing as a good market or a bad market. The market is always great. Success is always internal. It is never external. Never allow yourself to blame the market for your success or then lack of success. It's you, it's your actions, it's your behaviors, right? That determines your success. So, with that being said, going into the market specifically that we are in now, this is a difficult. I get asked this question a dozen plus times a day of where's the
Right.
market
Sure.
going, and it's none of us have a crystal ball, none of us know, but there there's some gray area here. And what I mean by that is it depends on what takes place with the manipulation on the back end.
Right.
And for those of you that aren't really familiar with monetary policy, fiscal policy, and what's going on globally, there's so much manipulation that takes place. I mean, if you look at from 2007 till today, if there wasn't back end massive manipulation, meaning money printing, quantitative easing, and then the Treasury Department monetizing their own debt, we would now be in a 15-year-long depression, right? We've had
Right.
about a 1% year-over-year decline in GDP growth since 2007. And if you compare that to the 40 years prior, we'd be in a 15-year-long depression right now. So we've got a lot of a mess going on right now. Now, with that being said, if the Fed continues the path that they're on right now, and that they say that they're going to continue, Jerome Powell from the Federal Reserve is coming out saying that he's going to continue this tightening schedule. He's going to continue raising rates, which don't have a direct impact on mortgage interest rates, but it matters because it impacts cost of capital and market
Right.
liquidity and so
Exactly.
forth, right? So
Exactly.
if he continues on this path, and I'm not even saying raising rates, but just not lowering rates, right? Which he is saying right now that he's going to continue this at least for the next couple of years, right? At the same time, practicing quantitative tightening, so sucking liquidity out of the market. If they stick with that path, I truly believe that we are going to have a real estate market crash, and we need a real estate market crash. When you look at the average first-time buyer being 37 years old, that's absolutely absurd. Real estate has gotten so unaffordable. It's all just comes down to inflation, and I always ask people this, like, do you want your dollar to go further or less? Do you want your money, your money to be worth more or less? If you want it to be worth more long-term, we need to go through and experience deflation in all asset classes. And I truly think it's going to be painful for a lot of people, but it'll be the best thing for people long-term. But it doesn't matter what my opinion is, with that front of it. When you look at everything that's going on, when you stack on the inflation, so the cost of life getting, more and more for people, when you look at, we're just coming out of the largest all asset class bubble of all time in recorded history. We currently have the biggest debt bubble of all time in recorded history, of magnitudes of scale that have never been seen before and probably would have never been imagined. You look at like the derivatives market. I mean, there's over a quadrillion dollars wrapped up in the derivatives market. So when I talk about the debt market, I'm talking about government debt, corporate debt, and consumer debt. You put all those in a combination, like we've never seen a situation like this. We've never been this volatile ever. And when people sit there and say, oh, this is not going to be like 2008 and so forth, I'm like, look, the average person, and also from a government institution and a corporate institutional scale, everybody is in a way worse off position right now than we were leading into the great financial crisis. So when I study every KPI, I'll call it, out there, I believe that if we continue on this path, we're going to go into, potentially a global depression. And I believe that real estate is going to get absolutely, crushed. But when I say that, like, it's a good way. I mean, if you look at it, if you say the 100-year historic trend line for real estate,
Right.
And adjusted for inflation, we should be at like 2012 prices. Prices are just absurd. Now, I don't think like in my market, I think we'll probably go back down to about 2018 prices. I think that like median household, our median sales price right now is like 464. It needs to go back to about 250. You can't outprice the locals, dude. When you look at, if you live in a market like mine, there's different markets that are like, destination markets, if you will, where, let's just say you got a lot of people buying secondary homes, vacation homes. You got all these billionaires like Naples, Florida buying secondary homes. Okay, that market might be different. I'm talking about the average market where people that own the majority of real estate, they live there, they work there, they're raising their families there. You take the median household income, you multiply that by about 3.5, and that's roughly around where the median sales price should be. To get back to an affordability standpoint, man, like we need a massive adjustment. Otherwise, we are going to become like the EU, man. We're going to have the Italianification, as Danielle DiMartino Booth calls it, of real estate here in America.
So let me ask you this question. Though we've seen interest rates, mortgage rates come down over the past month, right? Wouldn't that tend to make you think, even though the other rates are going up, wouldn't that tend to make you think that maybe there's a chance we're going to be normalizing a bit? I mean, we haven't seen a freaking normal market in 20 some years. You don't think that, even though affordability is going to increase.
Yeah. I mean, here's why. If you look at, so how are mortgage interest rates? How are those set? They're set by mortgage-backed security purchases, right? So what's taking place right now is we have, because this is one of the differences between 2008 and right now is, in 2008, that was the United States problem that spilled over to the rest of the world, that the rest of the world felt. And when you're the largest economy in the world and you crash, the rest of the world's going to feel that. Now this is a massive global problem, where as bad as our problems are here in the United States, we are probably in the best position. So everybody else is in a much worse off position than we are right now. So what's taking place on a global scale right now is a massive sell-off of U.S. Treasury bonds. So if you look at Japan, if you look at a lot of countries in the EU, they are because the dollar strength in correlation to their dollar is gaining, because we're in a position, because we're not experiencing the demography issues that they are. We're like the only country on the globe that can be in this tightening schedule that we are. Everybody else is essentially forced to be in a zero interest rate environment, which is creating this massive discrepancy and the dollar valuation, if you will, meaning our dollar's becoming so strong, it's breaking so many of these other countries. So they're forced in a position where they have to sell off at record levels these U.S. Treasury bonds, right? Well, the U.S. Treasury bonds have been going so damn high here in the United States, where all that money from Wall Street that typically would be buying mortgage-backed securities, because when you look at the U.S. Treasury bonds, I mean, investors are essentially classifying those as risk-free investments, right? So any other investment that they're going to invest in must give a high enough, percentage of an ROI, above what the Treasury bonds are set at, to make it worthwhile. So you got all these that normally be parking their money in mortgage-backed securities that are parking it in U.S. Treasuries. To the point, the only reason that interest rates have come down in the last month is because you got the central banks now buying those Treasury bonds. Right? They're coming in and they're practicing yield curve control, which is Japan's been doing for a long time now. And I don't know for sure if it's the central banks, is a combination of central banks or the Treasury Department, but that is another example of back-end manipulation of how they kick the can down the road. Like, the problems were never fixed from the great financial crisis. They just patched up a Band-Aids, kicked the can down the road. So that's all what's going on right now. If that manipulation wasn't taking place, interest rates would be well above 8% right now, is my best guess. And I don't know how long they can continue this problem, because this is just going to also elongate inflation. So yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised if interest rates don't hit 10% by first quarter of next year. I'm not convinced, because now the Treasury Department and the central banks can continue practicing the practices that they're doing right now, and who knows? I mean, maybe indefinitely, but the only way they're able to do that is by printing more money. That's going to keep us in an inflationary standpoint. They're like, money's got to come up from somewhere, right? So that's just going to create other problems. That's not a good thing either. This is just, all leads to the same damn problem. It's just, do we want to face it now, or do we want to, do we want to face it later? Kick that can down the road and have to face it later. So if it's not solved by the markets themselves naturally without manipulation, it's like having a football game, but then all of a sudden the refs are able to trip the players, and then they didn't see certain calls, and it's like, okay, at some point you got to let the teams play each other and settle the score. And so at some point the markets are going to have to do what the markets are going to have to do. We're going to have to discover what true market bottom is, which nobody knows right now. Nobody's really seen what true market bottom is since like 98, or arguably even prior to that. So yeah, no, I think that is a very temporary thing that we're seeing right now. I mean, I could be wrong on that. Like I said, it's all this is contingent on, because like right now, I mean, there's some talk that the Fed may pivot, based on Jerome Powell's last speech, that they may pivot and they may, slow their increase of rates, and they may start coming down, with interest rates next year. So when I was asked, even in 2020, 2021, about, like, is this going to continue, or is it going to eventually, crash? What comes up must come down, like trees don't grow forever. Otherwise they'd be touching the sun. Right. Well, like I always said back then, is it's all contingent on these institutional investment purchases, right? So institutional investor purchases, these guys aren't paying cash. They're like a BlackRock of the world. They have a direct line with the Federal Reserve. They have super cheap money. They're not acquiring real estate right now because their cost of capital is so high. But if that happens, if the Federal Reserve right now went back to a 0% interest rate environment, it doesn't mean that the average person would be able to afford those properties. But what that does mean is that these institutional investors will come back in and start swallowing up these properties, and it may stall this, crash or correction, trajectory that we're on right now.
But that's not a bad thing, though. I mean, for the market, it's not a bad thing if the inventory is eaten up. So I want to get to a couple other things and talk about our business. And one of the things you said in the beginning, you talked about your business and your team and everything, and that you're still doing really well, and that you said that you pivoted. Talk to me about your pivot, what you did to keep going where you're going.
Yeah. So, what I'm always assessing and looking at, and I said this earlier when I talked about there's no such thing as a good market or bad market. It's our job to identify whom the market's good for. So we started looking at this. And this was in about March of this year. As interest rates started going up, and they're going up about 0.5 point, or 0.5% a month at that time, we started looking at this and assessing, okay, well, who is this market good for, now that we're gaining more inventory? And it's been buyers, so when we start looking, like, because right now, on the seller side, it's like listing inventory. Now every market's different. So this is why I'm going to try to also explain my thought process of going through this, so you can apply this, even though it may not be the same strategy in your market. You understand the overall hierarchy of the strategy. Looking at that, okay, for sellers in our market, it's like if they were to sell it at the peak versus say with our average price point, like it's $100,000 less today. So okay, like and we're racking up days on the market. It's difficult to go out there and sell a property in this market. So we started looking at this. Okay, well, who is this environment good for? So if you compare this to, let's just say, a year ago, a buyer would have to go out there and settle for a property, whether that be location or features that they want. They'd have to settle for a property because we had less than a third of the inventory that we have today. They'd have to compete against 25 or 50 other buyers. They'd have to pay, if it was listed at $500,000, they'd have to pay $600,000 for that. They'd have to come in with an additional $100,000 to cover the appraisal gap. The seller wouldn't do any repairs, wouldn't do any of those. So we're looking at this right now. We're like, okay, they're able to get that same house for $100,000 less. There's 3.5 times the inventory in our market right now versus even May of this year. So they don't have to settle. They're able to go pick out the location, pick out the property, get it for $100,000 less, get the seller to, do repairs, all of that stuff. But even with that being said, because interest rates are so much higher today, and even though that house is $100,000 less today, the average payment's still $500 more today So then we're like, okay, well, now we got to solve the interest rate issue. So then we're looking at, okay, well, how can we solve that interest rate issue for them? Let's talk with our lenders and so forth, seeing like what buy down options are. Okay, well, with a 20% down conventional buyer, and go check with your lenders on this. I'm in Phoenix, so I don't run a nationwide team, so I don't know if this is a market to market thing. I doubt it is, but I would still check with them. But for us, it was like, okay, a 20% down conventional buyer can get up to 9% seller concessions. So then we're like, okay, well, we can use 2 or 3% of that for closing costs, and that gives us 5 to 6% for rate buy downs. And if we can do that and get that, then from every KPI that we looked at, it was like, okay, it's the best time that we've seen to buy in 3+ years. So then the next solution, so that's identifying, okay, well, that's me putting the pieces together for who this current market is good for. Then from there, I got to go out there and find out where those opportunities are at for them. So I started assessing our market. We're like, okay, new builders right now, like, are absolutely getting crushed. There's over 12 months of inventory nationwide for new builders right now. And when we look at these big builders, like your Lennars, your Pulte's, they're not dummies. These are multi-billion-dollar organizations. They are smart. They know the hellhole we are headed for. Like, if anybody's going to be desperate to unload inventory in the quickest fashion right now, it's going to be new builders. So we then started reaching out to all the builders in our market, that our clients would be, would work for our clients, and just start having these conversations with them of, essentially, hey, we've got an abundance amount of buyers that want to buy your properties right now that we can bring and sell your properties. We just need you to offer a big enough concession,
right?
We need 9% concessions. This is what we need. And we got them essentially all to agree on it. Then I started assessing, okay, well, who else is desperate? If you are a flipper that bought a house as this is going down, you've lost money, you've lost your ass, you're desperate. So we have a ton of these iBuyers in our market. Open Door, as an example, accounts for 11% of our listing inventory, but only 3% of our sales. So we're like, okay, also on all these iBuyer deals. So then we started targeting, and we're having more success with new builds in the iBuyer deals, but we're still having success with those as well. But then we started targeting those clients. So then our messaging, right? So now we've got who the market is good for, right? We figured out, okay, what are those pain points and what are the problems that we need to solve? We come up with those solutions. That then becomes your unique selling proposition. Then from there it comes into messaging. So in everybody else, like anybody that's watching the mainstream media, it's all the market is bad, the real estate market is bad, the economy is bad, all this stuff is bad. All of our marketing, all of our messaging is, the market is amazing. This is the best time that we've seen to buy in 3.5 years. Real estate is the most affordable that we've seen for buyers now in the last 3.5 years. Here's why. Reach out to us today. And go out there and help those clients, and one of the most difficult parts during a real estate market shift is there will become a point when it shifts enough. And I've been doing this for, 18 years now. So I've experienced these. I've experienced the 2 biggest housing booms in real estate's recorded history during my career. And I've experienced the biggest housing market crash in recorded history of my career. And I've had a lot of success in all of them. So then, and that's not to brag. I'm just stating that because these are the strategies that allowed me to do that, right? Is just pivoting with this, but there will come a time where the shift will be significant enough where it'll be very clear who the ideal client and or ideal clients are for that market. Like, as an example, there's going to come a time when prices come down enough where investors want to swoop back in. They're getting amazing cap rates again. There's going to come a time where maybe short sales, maybe REO, that's yet to be seen, will start to be a thing where people need that, there'll be a market for that, but until that time, like where a lot of people are at right now, and where we were at up until a couple of months ago, is this gray area, where when you're transitioning into that shift, you go through a brief moment of time where it's not really good for anybody, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, and this is where, though, look, you got to push hard, man. And I know that this isn't what people want to hear. Everybody wants that magic pill again. I get that. I understand that, but there are going to be times throughout your career where you have to work twice as hard for the same amount of money. So in the beginning stages of this, I started looking at this. I'm like, okay, well, sales are down 50%. That just means that we got to generate twice the amount of leads and do twice the amount of follow-up to get the same result. And if you want to increase your business from there, then do the math and figure it out from there. So we just got to deal in realities as well, because here's the amazing part about all of this is the percentage of real estate agents, team leaders, and brokerage owners, the percentage that will be disengaged, that will bury their hand in the sand, that will be depressed, that won't take action, that maintain in the game, combined with the percentage that drop out. Like, dude, this is a mind-blowing stat, but already this year in my market, we've lost more than 30% of our agent count already. Over 30% have already pieced out, and then there's even a bigger percentage, my guess is, of those that are still in the game that are just disengaged, discouraged, not working. They're already thinking about their exit strategy. So the amount of those disengaged plus those that drop out will be significantly greater than the loss of, lesser sales taking place. So the piece of the pie will be much greater to be had for anybody that's truly committed to going out there and succeeding.
So what we've just addressed is very simple. Number one, that the market is going to be, you have to really examine what's going on in the market with interest rates and your pricing where it is, because not every place is like Phoenix, Arizona. We're still having multiple offers, but the interesting thing is it's kind of all over the place, Josh, because when I look at homes and I'm more looking at competitives than I am at comparatives, meaning that what's on the market. If I see something that's been on the market for over 100 days, I think that it's kind of off. So to me, when it's on the market 100 days, 120 days, to me, I'm looking at it's off the market because the number's just not right. But when you look at the house that is priced properly, you probably won't see it because it'll go a lot faster than it normally would. So the plan for agents right now is really pretty simple. It's to really do the basics of the business, which is prospecting, which is coming from a point of the other person, right? And what I mean by that, and I'm sure you agree, is that we cannot worry about what we're doing for us. We have to worry about what we're doing for them. So if you were to talk to 20 agents in a room that were either stuck, knew, or didn't know what to do, what would you tell them to do?
Yeah, I would say, I just did I was just featured in, I don't know what you call it, like an event where they went out there and interviewed, 30 top agents throughout the country, team leaders and agents. And it was, okay, you have 100 days to start doing deals. But if you don't close deals in 100 days, you have to exit the business, and the reason why I bring that up is because, because it's like, I think the question that you're maybe not asking there, but maybe asking through the question is like, what is the quickest way to making now money? Like, hey, man, I need to make freaking money now,
right.
Because at the end of the day, cash flow is the heartbeat, the blood of our business, right?
It
so then with that being said, it's like, okay, first off, number one is to know the timeline of the different methods that you are applying. And so what do you want to call that, lead sources? What do you want to call it, prospect and marketing of those lead sources? And so an example of this, and this is what I said at this event was, okay, if I start cold calling, doing circle prospecting for listings, okay, like, maybe I'm, going out there and maybe it takes me a month to, or maybe it takes me 2 weeks to go out there and get a listing. Right. Well, okay, it's going to probably take 2 weeks because right now, at least in our market, those listings have to look amazing. Like, no longer can you just throw it on the market. Right. So, okay, so I get that listing. They're going to take 2 weeks or so to get that house decluttered, clean, looking great. Then we got to get it on the market. Well, our average days on our market is like 55 days on the market right now. So then if we can get a contract in, I'm like, by the time that thing even closes, even if you were lucky to go out there and get a listing in the first 2 weeks of circle prospecting, like, you're almost out of time, if not completely out of time with that. So paying attention to that matters. Like, the time frame matters. So what is the quickest way to now business? And there's really 4 of them that I'm aware of. The first one is, and this is, I'll get into if you don't have a sphere of influence, the other 3 have nothing to do with sphere of influence. But the first one is tapping into your sphere of influence.
Absolutely.
Everybody's got a sphere of influence.
Absolutely.
Like, just pick up your cell phone, start calling people, reaching out to them, checking what they're doing, but have because the law of reciprocity, like, you don't have to beg for business, right? So law of reciprocity is the most powerful law in the law of influence. And so when I pull into people, if I call up Dave and I'm asking about Dave's kids and family and how his business is, eventually he's going to ask me how I'm doing and how things are going for me. At that point, then I can turn that around. Oh, things are great. Family's great, man. The real estate market is absolutely amazing right now. We're finding the best time to go out there and buy in the last 3.5 years, best affordability, and man, we're helping so many families get into their dream home right now today, and it's going amazing. right? Well, that's a different narrative than they're hearing everywhere else. They're going to, well, hey man, I heard the market sucks right now. Like, what do you mean? Right? They like just plug into your sphere of influence and start reaching out to everybody, connecting with everybody within your sphere of influence. Okay, now let's get into the other ways. So as far as a new prospecting method, if you will, is open houses. And when I say new, like it's not new, but I mean like to get new business. So open houses is the quickest way that I've found. Well, these next 3 ways will be the quickest way I found to get now money. So with open houses, if I know how to do an open house, and you can go to my YouTube channel, type in open houses, and I go through all my strategies with you. It's free. You don't have to buy anything. There's nothing, for the on that. But I go like, dude, if I want a buyer in my car, I know if I go out there and do 1 or 2 open houses this weekend, I'm going to have a buyer in my car the next day or the next week. Like the quickest way I found to now money if you do them properly. So, okay, I'm going to be crushing open houses. I mean, this is all I did my first year was just open houses. And I did 48 deals my first year. I didn't know a soul. I just moved from Michigan to Arizona. I didn't have a sphere of influence. I didn't know anybody, right? So, I mean, they just work. We still do a ton of open houses in my business today. Okay, the next strategy is I reach out to, the top lenders or great lenders that are in your market and ask them if you can call any of their old leads, their old applications that for what they came in, they inquired about a loan or they applied for a loan, but for whatever reason didn't move forward with that loan, and ask if you can call them on their behalf to see if they are still interested. So I call that lead. It's, hey, whatever their name is, I work with whatever the lender's name is. We wanted to reach out. Our records indicate that you applied for a loan 18 months ago, and it didn't appear, at least from our records, that you moved forward with that. And we just wanted to see if that's something that you still have interest in. Right now, we are seeing it as the best time to buy over the last three plus years, all-time low affordability. We're helping a lot of families get into, their dream homes right now. Just want to see if that's something that you are still interested in. I guarantee, like you rip out through 250 of those, like you're going to have a pre-qualified buyer. Boom, you win, your lender wins, everybody wins. And right now, 2020, 2021, that strategy was a little bit difficult because these lenders were so flooded with refi business,
Exactly.
right? But right now, lenders are dropping out like flies. They're begging, like they would love to have you come in and call them those. The fourth thing is, okay, let's just say I can't find a lender. I'm too lazy to go out there and do open houses or whatever the excuse may be. And I'm not here to judge anybody on any of those things, right? That's why I'm trying to give a lot of different variations. The next thing is, then go to top realtors, top team leaders in your market and say, hey, I would like to follow up with any or all of your older leads that are getting neglected for whatever reason. See if I can drum up business with those, and anything that I convert and close, we can split 50-50. Dude, I got 90,000 old leads in my database as a team leader. I mean, so many team leaders would, I've got, of course, got teammates that are calling those, but there's so many agents that will take you up on that deal, right? Like you become almost their ISA temporarily to go out there and start getting deals to happen. Now, I like the lender play better because I don't have to give up 50% of that commission. But if you can't find a lender, that's an alternative to that. But if I'm looking, if I need to go out there and be, let's just say I need to make 40, 50, 60 grand in the next 100 days and not just have them in the pipeline, but like commissions in my hand, like that's what I'm going to start doing immediately.
So tell me, what about for sale by owners and expireds, Josh?
For sale by owners and expireds, they're awesome. They're amazing. I'm a big proponent on those, but like I said, I'm going to pay attention to the timeline. If I need to get paid now and immediately, expireds and FSBOs are longer term play. Like look at expireds. And this is why it's so important to know the timeline and the psychology of each lead source that you're going after, because this will then stipulate what your strategy is. So like an expired and FSBOs are 2 totally different beasts. The average expired, so over 90% of expireds wait until they don't relist within the first 90 days. So everybody's trying to attack them and go after them and like day number 1 or week number 1, but only 10, you're going out of 10% going after 10% of the pie there. And I'm not saying that we reach out to them immediately as well, but we also reach out. I mean, our reach out plan is day 1, then every 21 days for the first 6 months, and every 6 months for 2 years. So we have a 2-year follow-up plan for expireds. Now, I don't do calls. I do have an effective mailer campaign that I do and get them reaching out to me and call me. Because that's my style of doing business.
Yeah.
But we got to pay attention to that timeline. And then a FSBO, look at a FISBO, it's like, okay, what's the number one reason why a FISBO does a FISBO? It's not because of saving commissions. That's number two. The first reason is that they truly believe they can do it on their own without a real estate professional. They truly believe that they can do as good, if not better, of a job. Well, if you ever try to talk anybody out of their belief systems, like you got an atheist and a Christian, or you got a Joe Biden supporter and a Trump supporter. Like, good luck talking that person out of their beliefs, right? It's impossible. Like, the only way people's belief systems change is they have to go through a self-discovery process, and they've got to discover it on their own. Well, the average FISBO, that takes about 8 weeks, right? That's 8 weeks of them saying, oh shit, this is tougher than I thought. I need an agent. Boom. So like our FISBO strategy is when we reach out to them, like, we're not asking for anything. We tell, like, hey, I respect, honor everything that you're doing. I get it. When I sell my own homes, I hate paying that commission check as well. And we tell them why we reach out to them. Like, we tell them, hey, look, in the event you're unsuccessful at selling your house, if you ever come to that point, hopefully you won't. And I hope that you have all the success in the world at having success on your own. But if you ever come to that point, hopefully you appreciate everything that we've done for you, and you give us an opportunity to interview for the job. Not asking for your business, just an opportunity to interview for the job, to be thrown in the mix. And we provide a free first sell by owner kit. So we teach them how to do their own open houses. We provide them, it's like they don't need to use a realtor in the state of Arizona, but they need to use a title company. We provide them a vendor list. We provide them blank contracts. I teach them how to do their own online ads. I teach them, so we have a full free first sell by owner kit. So we're positioning ourselves as that resource. So then when they get to that frustration point, then they're like, boom, okay, they're thinking of me. But again, with that timeline, all those are great strategies, but it's like my expired, that the average person that reaches out to me is on the eighth mailer that they get from me. Well, now I'm months into it, and my 100 days is ran out.
So, man, we are that was a great quick pace on what to do today with my question that I've asked so many people. That question, usually you answered it, but the question I usually ask is, gun to your head, need a listing need a deal in the next week or two. How are you going to do it? You just given the answer. So that's pretty amazing. So, man, we're a little bit up against time, and I want to I want to talk about you and your business, because that's really what's really important as we move forward with having you as a guest on a broadcast. Talk to me about GSD Mode podcast. Tell me about what GSD Mode is all about, and talk a little bit about what you got going on in your business.
So, GSD stands for Get Shit Done.
Right.
I know it's not a super original name, but it was, I'm just thinking about, and like I leading into the podcast, I was being interviewed on a lot of other podcasts, and I've enjoyed listening to podcasts, but I was like, man, I just felt like I could do a better job interviewing, and I, instead of just listening to them, like, let me go to the source. And I knew it'd be a great way to develop relationships and so forth. So, I started it, 7, 8 years ago. Man, it's been one of the best moves that I've ever made. Like I said, when I look at, 1,400 podcasts or how many episodes that we've done, I'm not looking at those as, an accolade as far as number of releases. That's 1,400 relationships. That's 1,400 people that I've been able to pick their brain and learn from, at all different levels. That's, and the relationships to me is I'm always focused on relationships. That nothing trumps really. Like, if you can lose everything tomorrow, but if you have the right relationships, like, you're going to bounce back fast. And through my career, man, I've made it, I've lost it, I've made it. Like, it's, something that's,
it's a big club, man.
Yeah. So, so that's GSD Mode, which is kind of a passion project, I guess, for me, but it's
but see, one of the things is you live it, right? You live the Get Shit Done mode. I mean, you can, it is the podcast, but since I have been aware of Joshua Smith, which is a very long time, we have a mutual friend in John Cheplack, and I know you worked with him for a long time, and it's just like, it's there. I mean, you live the Get Shit Done, the GSD mode, and all that. So tell me, what's next for you, and how can people get in touch with you if they want to work with you or get involved with you?
Yeah, what's next for me, man, is just growth and expansion at levels that I've never done before. It's interesting. About a year ago, I forced myself to take a little bit of time off, and I did some deep reflection. just to, I was 40 years old at the time, just turned 41. But, I was like, okay, like what's next for me for the next half of my life or that next phase.
Right.
And, it was interesting. The clarity that I'm getting is, man, I'm just obsessed with everything I currently do. I want to do more of it, but take it to a scale, as much as from an outsider looking in might think that I'm doing big things. I know internally that I've been operating at maybe 20% of my full potential. It's like I've been, there's so much more that I can do, so much, I can be getting shit done at such a higher scale, such a higher level. So big plans to scale the real estate company and take that to a nationwide front. And then I've got my software. So my three main focuses, dude, is and this is where the podcast brings all this together. The podcast is kind of the hub to go out there and create awareness and get my name out there and help an industry that's changed every aspect of my life. But then from there, that kind of creates that initial awareness that helps then gain awareness of the three other things. So I've got my real estate company, then I own a software company. And really the software company is what my real estate business is built off of and what we do to run it. I just made just open it up for everybody else to jump in there so they can, use it to generate leads and run their whole entire back end from transaction management to their CRM to, run their whole entire business off of that system like we do. And then I've got my coaching business, but it's all tied to real estate, and they all really like, okay, the software, I'm just using it to run my business and keep improving it with the things that we need to add to our business. The coaching business, I'm just teaching what I'm doing in my real estate business. They all kind of just, it's all kind of one and the same, even though they're technically three different businesses. But to scale those to new fronts that I've never had before. And it's, I would think that after 18 years of doing this, I'd get to a level where I'm burnt out, but no, it's like I have more desire, more fire to work harder, to work more, to push things to a higher level than ever before. Best way to get a hold of me is gsdmode.com. gsdmode.com. You can check out, have all the links to all the different places where we have the podcast, information on coaching, software, like all that stuff at gsdmode.com.
What's really interesting is that I had walked away from my brokers 5 years ago, gotten a little bit into coaching and stuff, and now I find myself back to where I was because the energy is still here. I've got the energy, I've got the desire to do it, and that's what it's all about, man. And that's why we have run into each other. I believe is to support each other, keep going, and that's one of the things that you said before in a different way. If anybody has a question on how to help with their business, you've got to reach out and search for that person, right? So that's why I've relaunched my career, so to speak, by starting a team, relaunched everything I'm doing, because it's just like, I'm not done. I'm not dead, right? And that's when it'll end, I believe. I hope that's a long time from now. But, I want to thank you so much for being on. We talked about how to get in touch with you. Next week, we have a very interesting guest, Jessica Dennehy, who is the CEO of Pivot and Slay, where she takes people that are in, certain high-end jobs, high-position jobs, and turns them into entrepreneurs to help them with their mindset and to get building. So that is really cool. We got coming up next week. Joshua, a couple of really quick things before we end. Number one, how do I help you grow your business?
I'm always looking for amazing guests to interview for my podcast. So any amazing guests that you have that you think would be a great fit for the GSD Mo podcast, love an introduction.
Great, man. So I want to thank you so much. And just as always, as you did on the first time you were on, we saw the new hat. You said you had to get it. How do I get one, Dave? I said, you got to come back on the broadcast.
Yep. That's
so
it.
we're going to be sending this hat back out to you. I want to thank you so much for being on the broadcast today. I look forward to running into you again in some gym in the future, or maybe some event, who knows? But stay on for a minute as we exit. Everybody, thank you so much for watching Real Estate Talk TGIF episode 234. And we will see everybody next week. Thanks a lot, folks.